Hi everyone, I am Miss Ahmed and I am the Virtual Content Specialist for 7th grade Science. This video will guide you on how to avoid plagiarism. You can use this before you start a research project or any assignment where you will be using information from various sources for your work. First, what is plagiarism? According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, plagiarism is to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own. Now, for many assignments you work on in your academic life, you will need to do research and learn new information from sources such as the internet, books, or articles. The important part to keep in mind is that you have to give credit to where you get the information from, and this is called citing. So, again, for information that is common knowledge, you do not need to cite. However, for any new information that you learn from any sources, you do need to cite and give credit for that information. So how do you cite information, or when do you know you have to cite information? So this is a helpful chart that you can use to help you know when you should cite information. So first, ask yourself this question: is it a quote? Are you using a direct quote from a source? If yes, then you are going to cite it and place double quotation marks around the quote, and you are going to say where you got the information from. If it is not a direct quote, then ask yourself the next question: is it paraphrased? So is it information that you changed around and paraphrased in your own words? If it is, you still have to cite it. It is still someone else's idea, someone else's knowledge. So you still have to cite it even if you do not quote directly from that source. If it is not paraphrased, ask yourself this question: is it someone else's idea or theory? If it is, again, you still have to cite it. Okay, so you have to say where you got the information from. If not, then there is no need to cite it if it is common knowledge or if it is your own thought. So these are just some ways on how to know whether you have to cite information or not. Okay, so these are the two common examples of plagiarism. So there is copy and paste plagiarism and word switch plagiarism. Now, copy and paste plagiarism is directly copying and pasting from a source. So let's look at this example here. This is the original source, A Guide for College Success. It says, here are some expert suggestions for students beginning college. Students should never be afraid to seek help, whether from professors, tutors, or classmates. Professors in college have specific hours called office hours set aside each week when they are free to be visited by students. Professors love when students come to their office hours to discuss things about class. Never be afraid to talk to a professor. Now, this is the plagiarized version. This is what the student wrote. Below are some excellent suggestions for students beginning college. Students should know there is help on campus. Students should never be afraid to seek help, whether from professors, tutors, or classmates. Professors in college have specific hours called office hours set aside each week when they are free to be visited by students. In fact, professors love when students come to their office hours to discuss things about class. Never be afraid to talk to a professor. As you can see, this is directly copied and pasted from the original source. So this is copy and paste plagiarism. Now, the next example is word switch, which is when you just switch around certain words from an original source. So let's look at this example of word switch. Now, the original example is, the term podcasting combines the words iPod and broadcasting, but you do not need an iPod or any other MP3 player to. Now, the plagiarized version is here. Neither an iPod nor any other kind of MP3 player is needed to create podcasts. a term which combines the word iPod and broadcasting because, now as you can see here, even though it was not copy and paste plagiarism, it wasn't directly copied and pasted, they did switch around some words, and essentially it is the same as the original excerpt. Okay, they didn't cite it, they just switched around some words and wrote another sentence. So this is also plagiarism. Okay, now let's look at some examples, and I want you to pause, maybe turn and talk with a classmate or partner, and ask yourself if this is plagiarism. Okay, so this is the first example. So this is the original source. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the student paper, and then I want you to pause the video and ask yourself, is this plagiarism or not? Okay. The wind erosion problem of the southern Great Plains did not occur because the farmers grew too much wheat, but because the drought prevented them from growing hardly any wheat at all from 1932 to 1940. During years of normal precipitation, the excessive root system of the wheat plants held the soil and offered excellent protection against wind erosion. In the droughty 30s, however, the inadequate moisture supply prevented a suitable growth of ground cover in the early spring blow season of February, March, and April. The drought then began a chain of events, the first of which was crop failure. So this is the original source, and this is what the student wrote. The wind erosion problem of the southern Great Plains did not occur because the farmers grew too much wheat, but because the drought prevented them from growing hardly any wheat at all from 1932 to 1940. Okay, so now read this carefully, the student paper, look at what they wrote, and ask yourself, is this plagiarism? So the correct answer is no, this is not plagiarism. So why is this not plagiarism? The student here quoted the original text. As you can see, there are quotation marks here to start and end from the original text, and they cited it with the author's last name, the year in which the article was written, and the page where they got the quote from. Okay, they cited it in the text, and they cited it with their reference section with further information on the source. So again, the author's last name, the year, the name of the article, and they cited that here in their references. So this is not plagiarism. Now let's look at one more example. So I'm going to read the original source. The wind erosion problem of the southern Great Plains did not occur because farmers grew too much wheat, but because the drought prevented them from growing hardly any wheat at all from 1932 to 1940. During years of normal precipitation, the excessive root system of the wheat plants held the soil and offered excellent protection against wind erosion. In the droughty 30s, however, the inadequate moisture supply prevented a suitable growth of ground cover in the early spring blow season of February, March, and April. The drought then began a chain of events, the first of which was crop failure. Again, same text as the last one, and now let's see what the student wrote here. The wind erosion problem of the Great Plains occurred because the drought prevented farmers from growing hardly any wheat from 1932 to 1940. Normally, the excessive root system of the wheat plants held the soil and offered excellent protection against wind erosion. But in the 30s, the inadequate moisture supply prevented a suitable growth of ground cover. So pause the video here and ask yourself or talk with a partner and decide whether this is plagiarism or not. And the correct answer is yes, this is plagiarism. Here, the students switched some words, just paraphrased the original text, and did not cite where they got the information from. So even though it was not a direct quote or directly copied, they still took that similar ideas from this passage and they did not quote it or cite it. So this is plagiarism. So remember, even if you paraphrase something in your own words from another source, you still have to cite it. Okay, so to summarize, if you ever use a direct quote, paraphrase information, or use an idea from another source, always remember to cite it and always remember to include where you got the information from, the name of the author, the page number, if there is a page number, and the year in which it was written to have a proper citation for your work so you do not plagiarize. Thank you for watching.